Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Hopefully by this time everybody has enjoyed some good turkey and cranberry sauce, and we're getting back into the swing of things in terms of the fast for the Nativity. Now listen, hopefully while you were enjoying your pumpkin pie today, you remembered that this year the feast of St. Catherine of Sinai, or of Alexandria, falls on Thanksgiving. So I didn't want to let this feast go by and not say anything about her. She's very, very special to me. When I had become Orthodox, I was Orthodox for a number of years, I think 7 or 8 years, and I'd never really had an experience with relics. You know, I had heard about them, and in theory they were fine. I understood them scripturally and traditionally, but as far as actually coming into contact with the relics of the saints, I had not had the opportunity to do this in an up-close and personal way. And so I had an opportunity to go to the Middle East, to the Holy Land, Israel and Sinai, and it was just a wonderful opportunity for 3 weeks. And on the way there, I went to San Francisco and venerated the relics of St. John Maximovich before catching my flight overseas. So that experience with St. John, that was really my first up-close and personal experience with the relics of the saints. But even then, St. John was in a glass coffin. Even though his relics were incorrupt, he was still vested as a bishop, and he still had the skin on his hands and his beard and everything else. But when I got to Mount Sinai, things were a little bit different because we went to the monastery there where St. Catherine's relics are kept. And I had the opportunity with my group to go, and the bishop was very, very hospitable. And he said, would you like to come and venerate the relics of St. Catherine? And I said, he said, of course. And so he took us back to the place where her relics were kept, and we had to actually remove our shoes because it was in the same space where the burning bush had grown. And so just as Moses had removed his shoes in that holy place where the bush was burning but was not consumed, so also we removed our shoes in honor of that same place where that bush had burned. Now, St. Catherine's relics were kept there, as I mentioned, and so I had the opportunity to venerate her hand and her head. And this was very, very, shocking. It was intense. It was a little bit otherworldly because it was one of those things where you find that your faith is brought to the fore. You're given an opportunity to do something that many people all over the world would say, wow, we get to venerate the relics of St. Catherine. And there was this sense of shock, and awe in the presence of her holy relics. Just the Reader's Digest version of her life for you, to give you some context for this. She was extremely beautiful, extremely intelligent. She was a pagan. Her mother was a Christian. The governor of Alexandria wanted to marry her. She did not want to marry him. She ended up becoming a Christian, and her mother was secretly a Christian and kind of made a connection with her and a spiritual father. She ended up becoming a Christian. The emperor was furious and wanted to convince her that Christianity was wrong, and so he gathered the 50 wisest rhetoricians and philosophers in the empire, and he brought them together, and he had Catherine against these 50 greatest men, and she ended up speaking to them with such clarity and wisdom and eloquence that they all converted to Christianity and laid down their lives in martyrdom for Christ after having had this confrontation with her. She was then martyred. She was beheaded. Her body was carried by angels to the top of Mount St. Catherine, which is just right next to Mount Sinai. Eventually, her body was discovered. Her relics were incorrupt. And so the monks brought her down the mountain and made a reliquary for her body. And then they built this monastery around her and called it St. Catherine's Monastery. That's where I went when we went to Mount Sinai. So anyway, there is so much more to her story. There are so many miracles, and I really encourage you to read it in its entirety. I'm sure you could probably find it on the internet. I have a hard copy. I'm old-fashioned. But I would encourage you to get your hands on it and read it. We know so many Catherines. There are so many people who have her as their patron saint, and she is truly an example for us of one who laid down her life, who laid down everything for the Savior who loved her and the Savior whom she loved. Christ is in our midst. He is and ever shall be.